Welcome into Triple Zeros. I'm your host, Josh Buckhalter. Follow me on Twitter at JoshGBuck. Hit up the Facebook page, Clocker Sports, website, clockersports.com. The email address is clockersports@gmail.com. And, of course, the podcast sites are at 30spod. You can find that on Facebook and Twitter. The NFL season is a wrap. Well, the regular season. It's a wrap. 17 weeks. A few rescheduling, a little bit shuffling. Nothing extended, though. They didn't have to go to the 18th week. But they did decide to expand to the 7th playoff team in each conference. So, that being said, that means the playoff fields are officially set, and we no longer have to pontificate as to who will be making it and who will not, and who will be on the outside crying. So, the first thing that we notice is that, it's you got one bye in each conference, right? That'll be the Packers and the Chiefs, who, by the way, let me get this out the way right now, are my Super Bowl favorites because, I think that's who the league wants. I think that's honestly probably the best game that we could get would be those two. I'm not saying that we would get a bad game necessarily, but I think that would definitely be the best game that we would get. And again, I think the league's wanted this since the 100th celebration a year ago. So I think this is the one, Packers, Chiefs, that would be what they want. But what we do get right now, for sure, is a super wild card weekend, and the schedule has already been released. Starting at noon Central, the AFC will have Indianapolis Colts taking on the Buffalo Bills in Buffalo. Buffalo's first playoff game in God knows how long. Well, obviously, you know what I mean. Buffalo being the dominant force they are since the 90s. That's what I was getting at there. This one, I think it's going to have to be Buffalo. Like we'll go into this a little bit more on Thursday, but I'll give you a quick synopsis. Buffalo has just been the powerhouse this season. Indianapolis' defense is good, but I don't think it's good enough, and the offense definitely is not good enough to keep up. Now, they've run well, and that's been one thing that Buffalo hasn't been able to do on either side of the ball is run or stop the run. So if Indianapolis has any chance of winning this game, it's going to be by keeping the ball on the ground. And I would say that would force Josh Allen to be a passer. And if this was a year or so ago, I would say that was a problem. But as what we've seen this year, I'm not sure that that's necessarily going to be enough to keep Buffalo down and knock them out. Indianapolis is going to have to step up. Phillip Rivers has played better as the season has gone on, but I just don't know if they have enough to take out Buffalo. Again, we'll go into this a little bit deeper. I'll break down some of the matchups that I do like and don't like for both teams coming up on the next episode. But next matchup we have will be at 3:40 Central. That'll be the Rams taking on Seattle Seahawks in Seattle. This one, listen, I'm rooting for the Rams, and I have no other reason other than the fact that they're the reason why my hometown team, Chicago Bears, made it to the playoffs because they took care of business against the Arizona Cardinals. And we'll talk about that a little bit more in a moment. But I also like them because their opponent, Seattle, doesn't really do well against them. Now, they beat them last time. That's fine. What we did see, though, is that Russell Westbrook. I always get Russell Westbrook and Russell Wilson. For some reason, it's the mouth motion. It's the RW Russell that, automatically throws me into a kind of a mode here. But I don't have the kind of faith that I think I probably should have in Russell Wilson. That I had in Russell Wilson earlier on in this season after seeing some of the plays that he's made when it's mattered most. We talked about this a few episodes ago, that I just don't know if there is if there's the same amount of killer instinct there for him in these kind of hypercritical, hyper pressurized moments that there are in others. I think that might be why we saw some of the lack of MVP votes, because at times when you might want him to elevate, there's been a lot this year even where you just kind of look at it and you're like, I don't know about that one, Russ. Decision making has been kind of questionable at times. Physical, obviously, that'll lead you to question it. But yeah, it's just, if I had to pick one, I would say the Rams. I mean, and that's before I had a rooting interest in what they were going to do. Yeah, they won. They beat the Rams 20-9. I don't know, man. I don't know if I see them. Now, that granted, Jared Goff got hurt that game, I believe, as well. So that was a big thing. He should be back for this one. That'll be interesting. But the history here favors Sean McVay over Russell Wilson and the Seahawks, despite the fact that this will be in Seattle. There won't be the 12s there, so I don't think it's going to have the same kind of impact. Will it be John Walford or will it be Jared Goff? And at this point, will it really matter with Goff's thumb? Now, he should be, again, I think he should be healthy for this game. We'll update again, as I said, on Thursday. But yeah, early one, got to go with the Rams on that one for multiple layers of reasons. Because yeah, man, if I didn't, I wouldn't be grateful. And I spent all of Saturday hoping and praying that they would take care of business against Arizona, so that the Bears didn't have to beat Green Bay, because I knew how that was going to turn out. And yeah, it worked out. So the last game that we get on Saturday is going to be the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at the Washington football team. Chase Young put out a tweet saying, "Tom Brady, I'm coming." Here's the thing. Washington can beat Tampa. And it's not because Tampa's not better than Washington. They are definitely a better, more talented team than Washington. I'm not sure if they're a better team than Washington in terms of, maybe they're getting there now because they seem to have hit their stride the past few weeks. But we've seen them be slow starters. We've seen there be miscommunications and at times mental lapses from Brady that we haven't seen throughout his career. And so it's not out of the realm of possibility that if this game is played very close to the vest by Washington and they're able to minimize the impact of the explosive Bucs offense and all those weapons, and they're able to put some points on the board themselves with Alex Smith there, they could sneak away with one. They snuck their way into this division. 7 wins. It's incredible. You kind of got to, I root for the upset. This might be the one where I root for it because, again, we've seen Tampa have some slow starts despite the fact that they've gotten hot of late. I just don't think that you can definitively say that they're going to walk away with this game and dominate. Now, they very well can. That's not to say that they're not capable of doing so. If there's going to be an upset, I think that might be the one. Sunday's games, we have Baltimore at Tennessee. That game's going to be, that's tough. That's tough. Especially this year, because every time I've doubted Tennessee, they've risen. Every time I've supported Tennessee, they've fallen. And it's been the same kind of story with Baltimore. This one is a tough one to call, and if I do a playoff moneymaker article this week for Clocker Sports, which I might because I haven't done a moneymaker article for the past 2 weeks because of end of season injuries and all this kind of stuff. I wasn't gonna put my name to anything where I just knew it was gonna be so fluky. Playoffs still a little fun. Might mix it up and do a prop bet for each game too. That would be interesting. This one though, Baltimore, Tennessee. Derrick Henry, by the way, congratulations to him, 8th player to reach the 2,000-yard mark in an NFL season. That's incredible, especially because when you know what he's going to do on the field most of the time, right? He can catch passes, but he's not a pass catcher, right? And so teams know it's coming. They're stacking up the box, and he's still out there accomplishing this. Again, this is a couple years into this now. This isn't new. Hats off to him and what he's done in his short career. Hopefully he can keep it up. I hope he has a very long run. We know how running backs are in this NFL, but dude, it's just great to see what he's doing down there with the Titans. And I would like to pick a winner for this one. Maybe I'll have one on Thursday, and after I look at the injury report and all that kind of stuff. But right now, I got nothing for you because I think that it could go either way. This one, Tannehill is perfectly capable of picking apart the Baltimore Ravens defense that doesn't play like a reputation would suggest at all times. And we know what Baltimore can do to anybody, especially a Tennessee defense that really ain't that good. It's all right. It ain't that good. Next game, Chicago at New Orleans, and that'll be simulcast on Amazon Prime and Nickelodeon. But the Nickelodeon part is what's funny is because this game is a comedy. The fact that the Bears even made it into the playoffs. Now, granted, you could say the same thing about the Cleveland Browns, but I just don't know that I could say the Bears are a playoff team. Like, we know they're not, right? Any other year, they're not going to make it. 8-8, that's the record that we all expect. And I actually wrote about this for Last Word on Pro Football. The record that we all expected actually came to fruition. 8-8. It's 8-8, 7-9, maybe even 9-7 if they got lucky. Some optimists had them at 10-6. They finished right where we expected through all the tumultuousness of the season. I don't know if it would have went any better if you'd have stuck with Trubisky. I think it might have gone better if you'd have gone back to him a little bit sooner. But they're in the playoffs now, and anything can happen. Now, their opponent is New Orleans, and they haven't beaten the Saints since, I believe, 2008. So when you talk about the odds being against you, damn. And we just saw what Aaron Rodgers, Devontae Adams, and Aaron Jones and those guys did to this defense. Drew Brees and company in the crib, pissed off that they didn't get the bye. Will Michael Thomas play? We'll see. I don't think it's going to matter though. That's the problem that I have. They didn't even play Drew Brees. Or did they play Drew Brees this game? I didn't even see. It's not a good matchup for the Bears. It doesn't match up well because this is a team that knows how to take apart. Brees gets the ball out quickly. Kamara is great with run after catch. Tight end is a weapon. These are recipes for disaster for the Bears. And it's a defense that plays sound football and makes you work your way up and down the field. These are not good things for Mitchell Trubisky and company. And hopefully they figure out a way to actually get past this, because I just don't know that they're going to have to steal one. You're going to have to steal. You're in the Superdome. Like, I'm hoping for it. I don't see it. I got to be honest with you. And then the last game, we have Cleveland again, like I said, at Pittsburgh. This is the third time they'll be playing the season, the second time in 2 weeks. They beat the Browns, or they beat the Pittsburgh Steelers, rather, the Browns did, in 17. But this was against Mason Rudolph, and they almost blew a 17-point lead. So I don't have a lot of confidence in the team that we've seen play up and down, depending on the day. Those are my early thoughts on this postseason. We'll have a lot more in-depth stuff as the week goes on, of course, when we get the next episode, of course. But that's what I think about early. Great games, though. Some really great games that are going to be going on this weekend. I'm looking forward to it. Super Wild Card Weekend. They might have to keep that around. Xavier Howard became the first player in NFL since Antonio Cromartie in 2007 to have 10 interceptions in a year. Hats off to him, part of one hell of a cornerback tandem down there in Miami with Byron Jones. That defense did a lot of the heavy lifting this season, as that team is oddly playing around with Tua. Here's the thing. You have people questioning their methods of how they're handling him. I've been on record as saying I think they can afford to do both, because if they don't like him, they can take somebody else. If they fall to him, they don't have to force the issue, though, because I think he is talented. But they don't have to be married to him. He kind of just fell to them in the draft, BPA type of deal. If they're not sold, okay, so what? I think that's more people worrying about the fact that they like Tua more than the fact that maybe his coaches know best. On top of that, what's wrong with what they're doing? They're not exposing him to injury. They don't think he's quite healthy. He doesn't look like he's all that healthy. He doesn't move the way you would expect him to. So maybe keeping him off the field is for the benefit of his career long term. On top of that, they could afford to try to win now with their draft pick and not being in danger or of concern, because they have the Houston Texans and their bomba clot fire of a team dragging down their own pick, given that they're sending out, they'll be top 5. So I don't necessarily have an issue with it. And they 10-6, they didn't make the postseason. But damn it, that's a good year. Why are people questioning them with Tua? I don't get it. I do understand that you have Philadelphia, who, by the way, has been getting blasted from multiple angles here about their. Or I'm sorry, we're looking at them trying to figure out what exactly are they going to do, because they've seemingly destroyed Carson Wentz's confidence. You heard that there's the relationship between he and Doug Peterson is beyond repair. So what? They got Jalen Hurts, okay, but then you pull him and you put in Nate Sudfeld. The reasoning for putting in Nate Sudfeld was that he's been here for a while and they felt like he should have some snaps. The hell is that? I'd be pissed if I was a guy on that team. A lineman, you know, linemen don't tank. Linemen don't know how to phone it in. I'd be pissed. You'd have to be pissed, because you're going to work and somebody above. Now, we've heard all the stories all year. Howie Roseman is making game day decisions. Again, the Wentz and Peterson thing now. At what point is this become dysfunctional? Like, they went from being one of the model franchises with that Super Bowl run to being on the brink of being kind of a circus. It's such a weird fall, because it's happened before our eyes, and in slow motion from the signing of Wentz, before that the usurping of him from by Nick Foles as the guy, right, the beloved leader in that town. Then they eschewed Foles out of town to bring Wentz in, and now look at him trying to replace the guy that they just signed to that big deal. They didn't come out and flat out say that they weren't trading Carson Wentz. I don't know that you should. No, I mean, why would you keep him at this point? You kind of made it clear that you don't. I mean, Peterson's coming back. It's weird, and they're just getting they. Meanwhile, people are worried about them in Week 17. Giants players are pissed. Darius Slayton's pissed. Eli Manning was funny about it. He's great on Twitter. Darius Slayton was pissed. I mean, obviously, if they win their games, it wouldn't matter. So that's a moot point. But you had media members pissed, people pissed because they felt like the Eagles rolled over here, and it's hard to argue against that. I don't know. The Cardinals had a late season collapse. Lost their last 2 games. This was a team, remember, if you remember, I started the year, Kyler Murray for MVP. And granted, now this last game, Chris Gervler had to come in because Murray, playing on a bad wheel, got hurt again. So I guess you take these last 2 with a grain of salt in that regard, and that's why the Rams were able to beat them and back into the playoffs themselves. But that collapse, it happened. It's a real thing. San Francisco, who's down to everybody. I almost had to play quarterback for him. And to these Rams who had John Wolford making his first start. Again, Kyler Murray. And I think, let me focus on that game real quick. This Rams-Cardinals game, I think the big difference here is just giving one guy a full week's worth of starters reps, and the other guy not getting that, period. We saw Strebler didn't get that. Wolford got that. I don't think it's any more complicated than that. And it cost Arizona a playoff game. I mean, maybe they figured they're not ready anyway. They can get healthy. They don't have the time. Kyler's maybe more banged up than we thought. Who knows? But it doesn't seem like that was necessarily the best choice. I don't know how they would have did it. Honestly, I just don't know how they would have done it otherwise. I don't know what else you would have done. You kind of had to let him go out there and give it a shot, but it definitely doesn't seem like the best move when you couldn't beat John Wolford. John Wolford. Yeah, not good. You have a few guys being Santa Claus, little late Santa Claus gifts, Christmas gifts here. Tom Brady and Russell Wilson both completing some shovel passes late to Antonio Brown and David Moore, respectively, so they are able to cash in on reception bonuses for their season. Good moves. And something we'll also cover on Thursday is the best and worst GM and head coaching vacancies around the league. Anthony Lynn was let go. You got Doug Marrone let go down there in Jacksonville. We know about what's happening in Atlanta. You got, what else? New York fired Adam Gase. So we'll talk about the best and worst spots. Matt Nagy's apparently safe. I don't know how he became safe, especially with how they played on Sunday against Green Bay. But I think that, and we'll wrap this segment up with this, talk about the Bears here. But look for Thursday for the best and worst head coaching and GM vacancies around the league. That'll be our big topic of conversation, and probably going to turn into an article for Clocker Sports as well. But the Bears on Sunday, as they back their way into the playoffs, thanks to the Los Angeles Rams taking care of their business, which honestly is as damning of a statement against the Bears as it is a compliment to what the Rams were able to accomplish along under the tutelage of one Sean McVay. I think we saw that the Bears are like I said, with that record, they are who we thought they were. Dennis Green, cue the music. And Green Bay's not going to let them off the hook. I don't think New Orleans is going to let them off the hook. But it's funny that if they beat New Orleans somehow, they get to play Green Bay again. That's funny to me because they're going to play Green Bay in Green Bay. That's not going to work. Ain't going to work. You're not going to like it. Pineapples, you're not going to like it. I don't like the false sense of accomplishment it gives the people in the building and the ability that it gives them to say that they did this. But the fan in me is like, hell yeah, playoffs, baby. Anything can happen. Anything can happen. Playoffs. Playoffs. And it's true. Anything can happen. Injuries, turnovers. Maybe the Bears finally get turnovers. They haven't been getting turnovers all year. But there's so many cracks in this defense. And I wrote about that in that article. How the 8-8 Bears backed their way into the playoffs despite a frustrating loss to Green Bay where they left at least 12 points on the board when the game still was in the balance. This is the type of stuff that will forever haunt them because they can't solve one thing, and that's quarterback position. And before anybody tries to say anything about how, well, they need to fix this and they didn't get this right, look at Deshaun Watson. Look at how in games the Houston Texans are. Right? How often they're in a game just because they have Deshaun Watson. They traded a first and I think a second round pick for Larry freaking Tunsil and have nothing else to show for that offensive line. And traded DeAndre Hopkins for the shell of David Johnson. But they're in every game because of Deshaun Watson, except for the one they played the Bears because they weren't going to let that happen. Hopefully the Bears figure out something in this, I think the draft order is still locked to, and they're going to be in pick 20. I think that's how it worked out that they're set in there, despite the fact that they make the playoffs. They don't get to move up or down because of their seeding. But maybe that's probably all the way wrong because if they do win, I think you would have to readjust. But hopefully they figure something out because Mitch has to go. We saw it with the pick. We saw it with the near pick. We saw it with the fake scramble where he could have gotten a first down and slid at 6. We've seen this movie. You lose to Green Bay again, that shouldn't let the staff stay, but they will. So maybe they get a better quarterback who can help them make that difference because this game was there for the taking and they just couldn't do it. That's disheartening. Switching gears over to the NBA, and somebody finally got some revenge. Damn it. Steph Curry was able to clap back at Damian Lillard after Lillard said of Steph Curry's struggles this season, which it's not really struggles, it's just struggles for Steph. He only had 2 games with 30 plus points this season prior to facing the Trailblazers for the second time. Because after the first one, Dame started talking trash, saying Steph was seeing now with a young team how hard it is to get those quality looks that he was used to getting. Steph responded by dropping 62, which, by the way, was 1 point higher than Dame's high against the Warrior, or his career high. So Steph said, not only will I show you that I can still get my shots off, but I'll also show you that I can do it better than you. Here's the thing about what I think people are feeling about Steph is maybe at points you got to realize that he's trying to find a way to get the other guys going. Now, he's not scoring well. I wouldn't say he's having a great year. I'm saying that you might have been witnessing him trying to find a way to mesh better with these guys and Andrew Wiggins and Kelly Oubre, who've been ass for the first few games. Well, he responded with the 62. He dropped 30 the next night against the Kings, and you might have just woken a sleeping giant, because the one thing you don't want to do is motivate somebody who's been there and done that. And Steph has been there and done that, despite the fact that you might not like how. And I think we've gotten to a point now where we do that a little bit too much with stars and greats. Is we harp on the things they don't do because we dislike them, or the things that they don't do that we wish they did, rather. Right? They don't do it how we like, so it's not good enough. And we dismiss all the other qualities, and Steph has done too much for that to happen. And so when Dame said it, which is funny for Dame to even say it, Steph responded accordingly. Now, to Dame's credit, he did say, hey, can't dish it if I can't take it. Way to respond. So, handshakes and daps, all good. Just an interesting moment. I think the league might be in a little bit of trouble. They're not making no playoffs, but because the rest of that roster is ass, like I said. But once Klay comes back, they could make a little bit of noise. I mean, not playoffs. They're not making it to the finals. Depending on when Klay comes back, though, we could see it. We could see them make some noise in the playoffs. I don't know. I don't think they'll get there because the rest of the roster is just too bad. But Steph can still definitely get his points when he wants to. Julius Randle is among the players who have been killing it. We talked about this a little bit last episode with the hot starts for Boston and Orlando. Not Boston, I'm sorry. For Orlando and Cleveland, who's actually cooled off since then a little bit. But Continuing with that theme, Julius Randle has been killing it. He's averaging 20 plus points for the second time in his career. His numbers had dropped down the past couple of games, and then he exploded for 28 points on Monday night. So that's a big boost for him. Him and RJ Barrett have actually had resurgences, and you got to credit, at least I give credit, a big part of it to Tom Thibodeau and what he's able to do with organizations and reestablishing a culture. We saw it with Minnesota and how he brought respectability back to that franchise, and I think he's doing it back with the Knicks now. If you got guys putting out points like that, Julius Randle had a triple-double the other day, right? Dibs just knows how to coach. You gotta save him from himself a lot of the times with grinding guys down, but Dibs knows how to coach. And so I'm not surprised to see these guys taking a step forward, especially a guy like Randle, a big with energy who just loves to play and does all the little things that you love to see out of a basketball player. Barrett stepping up is something that I like to hear and see. He was a guy that I liked coming out of college, coming out of Duke. Slow start, kind of like Cam Reddish down in Atlanta, who I think we've seen come into his own a little bit more. He started at the end of last year, continued it somewhat this year. So those are two guys who I think came in with a lot of expectations, didn't quite live up to them, but they have started to show signs that they are going to be everything that we thought that they could be and more. Christian Wood is another guy, and more than the fact that he's averaging 23 points per game and 10 rebounds per game this season. That meme that's floating around about his girlfriend dumping him on draft night because he went undrafted. And now he signed that big-ass contract with the Rockets and he's out here killing it. That's one of the best stories ever. And it's not because of the pain for her. I don't care about that. It's because of the success for him, because I'm sure at that moment he felt at his lowest. He said that he didn't go drafted, and that night he dropped her off at the airport and didn't see her again. Now, you might say, oh, man, that's nothing. He'll get over it, whatever. I'm sure in his world, at that moment, that was crushing. To see him go from that and to climb his way up to now, you might not call it the top to you, but to him, to the top, right? You know what I mean? Hats off to you, Mr. Wood. Kudos. That's a beautiful story. Love to see it. Again, not because of the pain that she might be going through or whatever regret she might suffer from it. She might not regret it at all. I don't care. It's about the success story of him. And again, coming back from a point that had to have been a low point for a young man in this world. That's just facts. Jeremy Grant, another guy who I've been a fan of for quite some time, but has come into his own. He's essentially doubled his stats since going from the Denver Nuggets over to the Detroit Pistons. And one of the reasons why he said he went was because he wanted more of an opportunity. And you could say that he went from going 12 points, 3 boards, and 75% free throw shooting in Denver last season to 23, 5, and 84.6 in Detroit this year. And again, a guy that I've been watching for some time that I think is just great to see him blossoming, doing his thing in another city. Hopefully it continues. Hopefully it's just him scratching the surface and he has another level he can get to still, because that's dope. 23 points per game. A dude who's been a role player, defensive guy, hustle guy. Worked his way up. Love to see that kind of stuff, man. Really do. Real quick, back to that Blazers and Warriors, a little tidbit there. The Blazers had hired Jim Boylan as an assistant or an observer, something like that before that. Brought him in as a defensive consultant the game that Steph had 62. You can't make this shit up, I promise. That is the funniest thing I've ever heard in my life. Oh my gosh. That's what they get. That's what you get. Who brings in Jim Boylan? Did you not watch the Bulls defense? You had to think he must be going around just slandering Zach and them. Has to be. 76ers, real quick before we move on to those Bulls and talk about how disastrous and slanderous, how much slander they actually deserve. 76ers are the best team in the NBA. Currently have the best record in the league, 6-1. Doc Rivers has those boys playing well. It's early, but that's impressive. You got to take them as they come. You can't really dwell on the fact that it's only been that many games, because if you do, you'll be doing that until the season's over. And the fact of the matter is, I think we were all prepared to blow this thing up in the offseason. A good chunk of us. I know I was. And I still kind of am. But that was just because I thought the Bulls could probably get one of those two guys. That's not happening. Doc's got his two superstars, and he's going to make it work somehow, some way, even if he has to force them to coexist at times. So hats off to what you're doing down there, or up there, over there, whatever, however you want to phrase that, in Philly, and keep doing your thing. Wrapping up with these Bulls, though, speaking of Chicago, guys, they are the same team. Billy Donovan's finding that out. Fans are finding that out. I am coming back to that reality after I had said it all off season. They are the same team. There's talent in the backcourt. There's no direction, though. It's 2 shooting guards with free reign. There's a young wing with a lot of talent. Patrick Williams. Look, my next video might be titled Mea Culpa, like I did for Luka, because I did the same. I'm have to do the same thing for Patrick Williams because I was dogging the pick on draft night. But I am very impressed with the young man's poise, pace, and his overall game. Just the way he plays, just his feel, his demeanor. I love it. Love it all. Him and Kobe are fixtures on this team, and Daniel Gafford. Everybody else can go in my book. I'm back on Move the Bigs. Get both of those guys. I don't need Wendell out here as well as he's played of late. Whatever. Don't care. Lowry, don't care. Both of them are too inconsistent for me to feel like, oh, you should be investing in them long term where they deserve to get. Nope. If the opportunity arises to upgrade either one of those positions, I'm sure the Bulls will do it anyway, but I'm not even hesitating, and I'm actually looking for a way to make something out of nothing with them because I'm not sure that they have it. I'm just not. I think Billy Donovan sees that. I don't know if Billy Donovan, though, like I said in the offseason, is the guy to turn that around. He might just be a guy to identify it and kind of bring it to the surface because he has that kind of clout and cachet. But I don't know if he necessarily has a plan to turn that part around. I've long said I think a lot of the resurrection of OKC last season was thanks to Chris Paul. Hopefully I'm wrong about that. I don't make negative determinations. I don't say negative things about my team in hopes they prove true. I hope I'm wrong. This is just what I'm seeing right now, and these Bulls look the exact same, and I think they know that. I think they kind of knew that coming in, though, and that's, they weren't necessarily in a position to make those kind of moves, so they didn't, and so now we're seeing that coming to fruition. Same thing with the Bears. Look, man, you're in transition. We'll see what they do. We'll see what the Bulls do, but it definitely doesn't look promising early on, as far as this team taking major steps forward, and that's unfortunate. They got those Blazers, and that's why Boylan was there for it. They just did that so Boylan can get a run at the Bulls real quick and blow them out and smirk on the sideline. If I see him somewhere on the sideline, I am going to be pissed for this game. I swear. That game is coming on Tuesday night, too. We'll see what happens. That's going to do it for this episode of Triple Zeros. Be sure to follow me on Twitter at JoshyBuck. Hit up the Facebook page and Twitter for the podcast at 30spod. The website for the podcast and a bunch of other podcasts, clockersports.com. The email address is clockersports@gmail.com. Website, clockersports. Facebook, clockersports, and Twitter at clockersports as well. Of course, like I said, be sure to read the articles. Last word in pro football. 8-8 Bears back into the playoffs despite loss. Be on the lookout for a Bulls numbers that count article coming out, and I'll probably do a stock watch too because we've had enough data now to see who's up and who's down. So I might do a stock watch first and then end the week with a numbers that count so I can make sure that we are staying pretty up to date. Also, Thursday we'll be talking about the playoff matchups and getting a little bit more in depth there. And we'll have a little bit of fun with the head coaching vacancies. Until the very next time, though, you already know what it is, man. I'm gone.